Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Creative Challenge. My name is James Bonanno, and I hope you are ready for some Premiere Pro animation challenge today. I'm super excited to get started and to hop right into Premiere Pro, where we were going to be going over some of the basics of keyframing, scaling, position, opacity. We are going to jam pack a lot in this short 30-minute segment. So, without further ado, let's hop right into Premiere and let's get this party started. So, let's for everyone that is watching this as well, make sure that you follow along, download the free resources, which will be the project files, the assets that I have prepared for this tutorial here. And just make sure to click on that source file. The link is in the description below. So anyone watching at home can follow along and yeah, let's get right into it. So we're going to hop into Premiere Pro right here. Thank you to those that are joining and joining the chat. But to get things started, I have a couple different examples of some basic keyframing properties and examples. One that is video focused and another that is more still focused. So the first example I want to go through is basically just the basics of position, scale, and opacity keyframing in Premiere Pro. I know it can seem a little daunting and maybe a little bit more expert than it has to be. So we are going to really boil it down to the basics of animation in Premiere Pro. And then at home, you can follow along and hopefully do the exact same process, because I do feel like it is simple to make really, really elegant, kind of nice moving motion in Premiere without having to jump into Adobe After Effects. So let's go into the first video, and I'm just going to play it back real quick. We're going to turn this off of mute. And your source files that you were following along with, you should have all these assets. They are labeled in specific folders. And when you open Premiere Pro, you will see that you have an example 1 folder and you have an example 2 folder. So we're going to open up, we're actually going to open up example 2 right here. And you'll see that I have an assets folder and I have my composition challenge number 1, animating keyframes. And so what I wanted to do for this specific tutorial is just lay out a little bit of an intro, find a really good song that I felt worked with clips that I was using. And I just want to create some really nice, smooth motion in addition to the clips that I already have. And for me personally, I feel like I like to use these position properties and keyframe properties when I'm shooting things on a tripod, or maybe I'm shooting a time lapse that I just want to get something a little bit extra going on. So if I play this video back, so you'll see very, very simple, just 4 clips in there. Those clips were shot over a number of different years and just some of my favorite clips to have. And you may or may not notice, but there's a lot of subtle animation properties that are going on in the sequence that are all done through keyframing in Premiere Pro. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So the first thing you'll see is we have our clip of myself and my wife, Anna, and we are hiking up one of our favorite mountains in New Hampshire. And this clip without any movement is just a static locked off tripod shot, which looks really nice. And I think it looks cinematic, but I wanted to add something extra. So what we're going to do is all these clips in our timeline, we're going to go over to our motion properties up here under effect controls. And you'll notice I've already created these keyframe properties. So you'll see a blue toggle stopwatch here in the left-hand side of your source window, and that is for scale. I have not actually animated anything for position yet, and if I had, you'll see that that toggle switch will turn blue, and it'll create a keyframe for us right where our basically our cursor is. So I'm going to undo that. And you'll notice that I wanted to just basically start with a very simple opacity and just kind of a nice gradual scale in, as I think the music lends itself to it really well. And so all I'm going to do here is you're going to toggle on scale. If I toggle it off and I press OK, you'll notice that these keyframe properties now go away. So we're going to press undo so I can kind of show you what I did here. And we're going to move these keyframe properties in. And the reason I like to move them in from the ends of these clips is so I can see what I'm working on. I can see the keyframes without going to the next clip. If I start here and I use these these previous keyframe buttons that you'll see right down here, it'll actually skip to the next clip. And I don't really want to do that just yet. So I'm going to start my scale at 100. So it's 100%. And then I'm going to add another keyframe right here at the end. So I'm going to delete that just so I can show you. I'm going to add another keyframe right here. And let's say we want to change the parameters to 105, just a very subtle, nice zoom in transition. Maybe we'll go 110 to make it seem a little bit more obvious. Okay, so now what we've essentially done is just created an animation from two different properties. We have our scale property at 100 to start, and then we have our, the scale property to end at 110. So ultimately what we're gonna see now when we play this back is that we just have a nice zoom, basically very simple cinematic zoom. And I think it just lends itself to this clip. In addition to that, I went down here and I worked on my opacity keyframe. And so the beauty about keyframes in Premiere Pro is you can layer them and stack them on top of each other. So we have our position, our scale, our rotation, our anchor point, which we can get into in future videos. I've honestly never really used the anti-flicker filter. If anyone in the chat knows, I'd be willing to try that out. And we have our opacity. So you can stack all these different keyframes on top of each other. So I just wanted a nice subtle opacity. And rather than drag the keyframe all the way out, I didn't want that entire duration to fade in. I wanted the clip to fade in a lot quicker. So I did the same thing. I came in here, I toggled my stopwatch, my animation, and I set my animation to 0. So 0 opacity will be black. Okay. And then I just dragged out basically where I wanted that clip to be seen without any opacity. And I added another keyframe here. And so nothing after this is being animated because there's no additional keyframe. If I wanted to fade back out, all I would have to do is come in here, drag my cursor, and let's add another keyframe. And we're going to change the parameter to 0. And now you'll see that from here to here, if I play back, we have a clip, and then basically we're fading out again because we've added another keyframe parameter. So very simple, but also very useful when trying to animate scale, position, property, opacity, all of the basic elements in Premiere, and creating some really nice cinematic features with it. So I'm going to keep playing this clip, and you'll see very similar position. If I click this clip, we'll open up our position and scale properties here. You'll notice that I actually added a position and a scale property. And the reason I added a position keyframe is to make sure that my horizon line kind of stayed the same. I thought that everything I wanted to stay very centered. So what you can do is you can come in here, same exact thing. Let's toggle these off, these animations off. And a very easy hack and trick, if you want to go back to where you previously started, this little reset parameter button here under your effects controls is a great way to do that. So I can just reset, I can reset, and I can toggle these keyframes off, press OK. And now I'm essentially starting where you might be starting at home and can just keyframe this how I want. So because this was a larger clip, I'm going to start by having this scaled out a little bit. So I'm going to pull this out. And right now, nothing is happening animation-wise because we have not toggled this stopwatch on. But once I find the position I like, let's say this is the position we like, I want to maybe move this up a little bit so that we get that horizon line a little more centered in the frame. Now I like where we're at, and I'm going to toggle my animation on both in position and scale. And then we're going to just come all the way to the end of our playhead. And scale, I'm going to change to, let's make it a little more drastic. Let's say 120. Okay. And I'm going to drag this all the way out. And position, maybe I want to adjust the position a little bit just to give it a little bit more of a dynamic flavor. And we're going to pull this up. And so now when we play this back, we have a much more aggressive animation than we had previously. So you can really start to kind of get creative with adjusting just the simple scale and position properties. So before I keep going, I just want to, again, welcome everyone in the chat and just see if we have any questions, try to address a few questions we have before finishing this first example and hopping into our other example. So welcome, Andrew, welcome, Laura, Just welcome team. Sam, it's very nice to have you here. And please, any questions that you have, again, this is a very rudimentary animation lesson tutorial here for the basics of Premiere Pro. I use these properties all the time, and these are clips that I've used in previous projects. So I thought it'd be a really great way to highlight just how I use animation properties, because it's not necessarily how you think of animation all the time. Okay, so we're going to keep on going here. All right, I'm going to unmute this so we could play it back. All right, and again, right here, the camera that I used, we had a question in the chat of what camera I used to shoot this nightscape. This was actually shot on a Canon EOS R. I'm still kind of old school with the original Canon mirrorless camera, and I was outside in Great Sand Dunes in Colorado. I'm very, very happy with this night time lapse. It took me about, I want to say 3 hours on a tripod, and there is no movement in it. And so I've always really liked this clip for little inserts to animate and push in on. So yes, that's the camera that I used to shoot this, and I'm thrilled with how it came out. This is actually slightly color graded. So if I click the effects, that's what it was, raw, straight out of camera. And then I kind of started to bring the highlights up as well. Okay, thank you, Laura, for the question. And so you'll notice with this clip here, rather than zooming in, we actually zoom out just to give the sequence a little bit more of a kind of back and forth. If everything starts to look the same, it's sort of loses its uniqueness. And it's a personal choice. So what I did here, same exact thing. We click the clip. We're going into our effects control panel. We have our motion, and all I've adjusted here is the scale parameters. So I've turned on our stopwatch, and I've started at I started scaled in, and then rather than pushing in, I actually pushed out, or, pulled out on our scale here. So you'll see we went from 115 to 100, and that's what gives you that animation. Okay. And then the last clip, I tried to implement as much as I could. This is a drone clip from, I believe, somewhere in Oregon, kind of near Bend, Oregon. And I liked that the horizon was a little tilted. So rather than just tilt it back in a rotation property, I wanted that to animate a little bit. So if we play that back, you can see very subtle, but there's still something dynamic going on other than just the drone clip. And this drone clip, I just hovered, so there was no animation pushing in or out. So it's a really good way to use these keyframe properties to animate the clip. Okay, so what we're going to do here, you'll notice I have a scale and I have a rotation property, both set. And so my rotation property, I actually have the clip rotated. And then I'm at about like -3 here on my rotation properties. And then I actually wanted the clip to end on that straight horizon line. So I turned it. And with that, we get this really, really nice, subtle animation here. And those two properties are the only things affected. We have scale and we have rotation. And before I hop into the next example, I just want to kind of toggle these two features down, because this is how you can get a little more detailed even in the animations than I've done already. So what you'll notice in these keyframes is they just look like regular diamonds, or I guess that's a diamond. I'm not exactly sure of the appropriate toggle animation icon. But if I zoom in on this a little bit, plus and minus on your keyboard will zoom in. I can right click any number of these keyframes and I have all these properties. So right now, these are just linear animations. It's just from basically one property to another. And if I scale this down, it's represented in sort of this curve. If I were to actually right click and change this to, let's say, ease out or ease in, you'll notice that I have a bit more of like a Bezier sort of curve here. And you can actually grab these handles, and I can toggle this and pull this down manually. And just like After Effects, if anyone's familiar with After Effects, and even if you're not, very basic information here, you can pull these properties to create more of a gradual animation rather than just a linear, right to left or small to large kind of thing. So these are really fun parameters to play around with. You don't have to do this on this stream, but in your in your own time, definitely play around with some of those parameters. And they make for some really interesting animations, not just in in this case, but in any other project you're working on. So Alejandro has a question. How do you apply the same properties to multiple clips? That is a great question. It's a lot easier than you would think. So the scale properties are dependent on that clip, but you can certainly copy and paste any number of these keyframes. So if I wanted to take, let's say I wanted to take the properties on this night sky that I've created, the scale, I would just copy both keyframes here. So we're going to come in here. You can copy, and let's go down here. Let's go to this clip because it's a little bit easier. And let's paste these in. And again, these are, you basically be overwriting what you've done already, but you can certainly do that. And we're going to come in and we're going to go copy. Oops, let's go back. I don't think it copied properly. So let's just touch that real quick. So copy right here. Sometimes Command C is a little finicky in Premiere when you're dealing with these things. And we're going to come in here. You have to be on the, let's turn this off. I believe you have to be on the property itself, and you can only do one property at a time. So if I'm going to scale, that's probably why. If I'm going to scale property, I copy this, and then you can come in here, press scale, and now you can paste those keyframes right here. But the thing you will notice that gets a little bit difficult is because you're scaling each clip individually, you will have a bit of a different parameter that you have to work around. So in my case, in this situation, it's easier to just do each clip individually, especially when it comes to scale and position, because each clip is different. So let's just hop into a second example so that you can see the same sort of functions here on still photos. So let's say you have a lot of photos, and in the world of Reels and Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube, maybe this sort of intro is more for long form content, and we want to see something that's really, really punchy and quick. So what we're going to do here is we're going to hop into our other example. And this is just, again, very simple. I found a song that I really liked that I wanted to cut some photos to and use as an example in this tutorial, and just create something that looked a little bit interesting. And I have not actually animated this yet. So the idea was to do this live with you guys here. So we're going to play this back. Let's turn this down a little bit. This music is a little loud. Okay, and these are just some of my favorite photos from a recent trip. Okay, so that's one example where there's just a lot of different motion going on, and feel free to follow along and kind of tweak that how you want with the source files at home. Again, they're linked in the description below, so please use those at your disposal. They are free. But I'm going to go to this example, which is the first one, because I just wanted to quickly show the same sort of animation properties and how I would do that live here for you. Okay, so these clips are all in a row. I have done nothing to them yet other than just scale them into position. So when you're bringing photos into Premiere Pro, you want to make sure you scale them and position them first. That makes your job a lot easier when you're actually animating. I tend to try to get things into position and then do the animation, so I'm not messing with the animation afterwards. So same thing, we have our first clip. Let's say I just want to slowly zoom this clip in. We're going to come up to our effects control, scale, and I'm going to drag this out to the end of the clip here. Okay. And I'm going to, let's say 60, but I also want to change the position at the same time so it's more centered. So we are going to come in here. Again, these previous keyframes take you to the next keyframe. I'm going to set this, and I'm going to adjust just the position a little bit so that there's both scale happening and there's a position move. Okay, I'm going to drag these out, and now we have a very simple animation. So we have nice movement on this one. Okay, and let's actually try to copy these properties with our position. So we're going to come in here, copy. Okay, and we're going to go to this clip, and we're going to click on the clip, press position, and we're going to paste. All right, and let's see if that does anything for us. Okay, so it moves. But the problem with that is that we don't want it to move that direction. So I'm going to actually delete this last keyframe. I like where it's starting. Let's maybe move it a little bit. Okay, we're going to press scale and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to scale this in just because it's such a cool clip for that. 110 maybe. Let's go 120. Okay, let's drag this all the way out. All right, and there we go. Now we're getting some of that movement as well. So you can already see basically from that static shot to some nice movement. And again, we can come in here and we can ease this like I showed you earlier. We can ease out either one. We can really make this motion nice and smooth. So let's go into the last one. Let's make this really aggressive just for the sake of the tutorial here. So we're going to press scale on this one. I want to maybe scale pretty far over Anna's arms here. So we're almost like flying into the sun. It may look a little crazy, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to do some crazy stuff. All right. And let's go 80. So that's really nice. And again, keyframing, the longer you're stretching these keyframes, the longer that clip will be. So it's relative to speed. The shorter together they are, the faster that animation will happen. So if I wanted to really drag this out, and I'm going to hide this clip here, it will look a lot slower. Right. So that looks pretty fast already. But if I drag it really, really close to this clip, it's super fast. Right. And that might be something that you're looking for. Maybe you want something to punch, come in really quick to the beat of a different song. And you can see really like it's a drastic change from that to this. So it's fun to play around. It's fun to get creative with the style that you have. Yes, wait, let's get crazy. I'm all about getting crazy, especially today. I'm feeling a little crazy today. Hopefully everyone that's watching this tutorial is feeling the same way. You're a fan of mine. Okay, so we animated this. I'm gonna drag this all the way to the end of the clip. I just want it to feel a little slower and consistent with the other clips. So again, drag that out. And I like to drag those animations to the very end of the clip so that there's not an awkward like jump cut at the end of it that seems out of place. Okay, and we're gonna go to the last clip here. And let's actually zoom all the way in, scale here. Okay, let's go 105. And you can see that I'm scaling. I want to scale and have a position keyframe at the same time to make sure that I am centered in the frame. This boat, we're all centered in the frame. So what I'll do is I'll add that position keyframe as well, toggle the animation, and let's go back to the beginning. You have to make sure you set those keyframes or else that action and that animation will not happen. So we've set it where it is now. We're going to go to the end and I want to just drag this up. Okay, and now what you're going to see, let's adjust it here and here, is you're going to see not only a scale change, but you're going to see this position change as well. And we're going to drag this to the end. There we go. Right, and so you can see at the end, I didn't drag that clip all the way to the end. I dragged it. So you'll see if I don't continue, our animation stops because we haven't keyframed anything after these two keyframes. And that might be something you're looking to do. But in this case, I want the whole clip to have one fluid motion to it. And that's why I choose to drag those keyframes out. Again, you can stack on here. So if we wanted to maybe fade out with an opacity keyframe, we can drag these to the end. We can come down here to our opacity. We can do the exact same thing. Toggle the stopwatch animation. We're set to 100% right now. Let's go to the end. And maybe we don't want to actually start that fading until right at the end of the clip. So what I'll do is I'll toggle another keyframe here. So that sets that keyframe at 100. And then from here, now we're going to go from 100 to 0 rather than from 100 to 0 gradually over time. All right. And we're going to then set this to 0. And we'll drag that out. So now what you have and what we're left looking at is something like this. So you get all those animations happening at once. You get a nice little smooth transition out. And, I'm pretty happy with just a very simple look. Now, again, this is a very quick and basic kind of run through of these keyframes. It is, a starting point, a really good foundation for people following along, for you to learn just the properties of the keyframes in Premiere and how to apply those to your videos, your photos, your titles. These effects and these keyframes apply to every asset that you have inside of Premiere Pro. So whether it's a motion graphic, whether it's a title card, all of them can be used and manipulated in the same way. I'm going to come in here and save this. There's a question in the chat that Stroofy says these files are going to be bigger than 8 megabytes for Discord. I believe they should be sized properly. I'm not totally sure. But again, the source files are here in the description. I believe we're out of time for today, but please make sure to download the files, follow along as we continue our Creative Cloud community for video. I really, really appreciate everyone for joining us today. And again, there's tons of other resources down below and in this community as well, more videos and programs that you can follow along with. So again, make sure to check those links out. I know we went through it very, very quickly today, but this is just a really good foundational starting point for you to follow along, get introduced to keyframes in Premiere Pro, and hopefully create some of your own magic and amazing cinematic masterpieces using these properties. So again, thank you for everyone who followed along today. Please make sure to hop over to behance.net/Adobe Live if you are watching this video. We do have live streams happening over on Behance every single day, so make sure to check those out. There's amazing artists and creators on that platform. And if you want to be live in the chat and ask questions, we will be there as well. That's it for me today. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.